There is a type of man that the world doesn't fully understand. He is not the one who flees from responsibilities or who fears external challenges. He is the one who discovered something that few have the courage to admit, that the true battle doesn't happen out there, but within himself. And to fight it, he needs his own territory, a place where he can drop the social masks and finally face who he really is. Society has a well-defined narrative about what it means to be a man. He must always be in motion, always visible, always available. He must frequent certain places, meet the right people, be present at the occasions that matter. But there are men who silently reject this script, not out of weakness or fear, but because they understand that there exists a true power, a power that doesn't need an audience. When you choose to stay at home, when you opt for silence instead of constant noise, you're not giving up on living. You're doing something much more radical. You're choosing to live on your own terms, and that requires more courage than following the herd. Because staying alone means confronting your own thoughts that the world out there helped you avoid. Now think for a moment. When was the last time you were truly alone? Without distractions, without a screen glowing in front of you. Without music filling the void, just sitting, meditating on the silence itself, dealing with your own thoughts, without letting yourself be carried away by external distractions? Most men avoid this encounter, because this encounter for many can be quite uncomfortable. Facing your unrealized ambitions, your accumulated frustrations, because the distance between who you are and who you promise to become can become a burden if you haven't yet learned to deal with your own thoughts. But men who learn to love staying at home discover something revolutionary. They discover that this initial discomfort is in fact the beginning of clarity. When you stop running, when you stop filling every second with external stimuli and stop fleeing from yourself, your mind finally has space to process, to digest experiences, to separate what is yours from what was imposed by others' expectations. And neuroscience shows us this. When we are constantly stimulated, our prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for deep thinking and complex decision-making, stays in survival mode. The brain becomes primitive and merely reacts. But in silence, in the absence of constant noise, this same brain region acts differently. It begins to integrate information, to make connections that were previously impossible. This is literally how the deepest insights emerge, how the turning points arise. The great thinkers of history understood this intuitively. Nietzsche walked alone through the mountains. Schopenhauer maintained a rigorous routine of solitude. Carl Jung built his tower in Bollingen to escape the world and dive into the unconscious. They were men who understood that depth only comes from diving, not from the surface. And here is something that psychology confirms. Men who manage to be comfortable with their own company develop something called internal locus of control. This means that their self-esteem, their sense of purpose, their validation, all of this comes from within. You will never find this in others. And in a world where most men are desperately seeking external validation, whether through achievements, status, or attention, this emotional independence is a form of silent power. But let's be honest, society punishes this choice. When you decline invitations, when you prefer a Saturday night reading or watching a good movie to acquire a bit more culture, or when you simply decide to chill at home, people start to judge you and say things like, "Are you okay? Are you depressed? You need to go out more." But they forget that mental health is not measured by the frequency of public appearances. And they don't understand that you're not running away from life, but that you're living a life you chose. A life different from their life. A life where your worth is not rooted in the external world. You don't need the energy of a crowd to feel alive. You don't need social validation to know that your time was well spent, because you've developed something rare and authentic, the ability to feel good in your own company. It's not about becoming a hermit or cutting all ties with the world, but about having balance. Understanding that you are a finite resource of energy and attention. Understanding that every hour spent in environments that drain this energy is an hour stolen from your own life. Think about how many times you came home after a social night and felt, instead of energized, a strange emptiness, an absurd tiredness, as if you had spent all your energy on things that led nowhere. Sometimes, yes, there are extraordinary moments, good company, good memories, and if you hadn't gone, you wouldn't have lived these moments. But they are rare. They are special. That's why you must be selective. You must choose wisely where to spend your energy, because by accepting any invitation, by giving yourself to anything, you'll be donating your time and your life in exchange for nothing. And when you need to give yourself to a truly important moment, you run the risk of no longer having energy or available time. This is the hidden cost of performative social life. It consumes without nourishing. Men who love staying at home have learned to distinguish between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is involuntary. It's the pain of disconnection. Solitude is chosen. It's the luxury of unfragmented time. In solitude, you are not interrupted. Your ideas can develop completely. Your projects can receive total attention. Your mind can finally work at its own pace, not the pace that the world imposes. When you are in silence, your mind functions at maximum capacity. Your thoughts organize themselves, and this ability to be alone indicates that you have emotional maturity. Children need constant stimulation. Teenagers need other people to feel complete. But mature men understand that wholeness doesn't come from outside. It comes from the internal construction of character, purpose, and self-discipline. When you're at home without an audience, without anyone to impress, you face a brutal question. Who are you when nobody is watching? Most men avoid this question because the answer can be uncomfortable. But those who face this question, those who use their time to find answers instead of excuses, they emerge different. They develop depth. Their conversations, when they choose to have them, have weight. Their opinions are formed by real reflection, not just by repeating what they heard. Their actions are intentional because they were thought through in silence, were deeply meditated upon, and not decided by impulse in the heat of the social moment. They become men of value in a world of futilities. Evolutionary psychology tells us something interesting about this. Our ancestors lived in tribes, yes, but they also spent long hours in solitary activities. Hunting often required absolute silence and hours of concentration, of patient observation, the ability to be with oneself for extended periods. This is not a new characteristic. It's ancestral, and you also have this rooted in your essence, but you will only find it through silence. Feeling peace when closing the door and leaving the world outside is not being antisocial. It's responding to something deeper in your biology. It's allowing your nervous system the chance to exit fight or flight mode and enter parasympathetic mode, where recovery and regeneration happen. This is why the best moments of creativity, of problem solving, of mental clarity, often happen when you are alone. Your brain finally has the silence and resources necessary to do the heavy lifting of deep thinking. It's not dividing attention between managing social impressions, interpreting nonverbal cues, and maintaining conversations. All cognitive capacity is available for what really matters. And if you're someone who works with the mind, whether creating, planning, solving complex problems, or simply trying to understand your own life, this unfragmented time is gold. It's where connections happen. It's where you go from having information to having understanding. Men who love staying at home frequently have a different relationship with their emotions. They know that feelings are not emergencies that need to be immediately shared or processed with other people. They can sit with their own sadness, with frustration, with anger, and let these emotions move through them without needing external validation. This is not repression, it's emotional maturity. It's understanding that you are capable of dealing with your own internal experiences. But this capacity for emotional self-sufficiency is only possible when you know yourself in a truly deep way. And truly knowing yourself allows you to enter relationships and friendships in a whole, genuine way, and not in a desperate manner. When you appreciate your own company, your relationships change in nature. You're no longer seeking to fill voids, you're sharing abundance. And there's a huge difference in this. Relationships born from need are, in reality, transactions. But relationships born from wholeness bring transformations. Men who understand this often have fewer friends, but deeper friendships. They invest in the relationships that really matter, and they're not always available, because their time has value. When they choose to be present, that presence is complete. It's quality over quantity. And perhaps this is what the world needs to understand. That staying at home is not rejecting the world. but protecting your energy so that when you engage with the world, you offer something of value. You're not just another empty body occupying space. You bring perspective. You bring the calm of someone who isn't reacting to chaos because they've spent enough time away from it to see patterns that others don't see. This is power. It's the silent power of inner clarity. And men who cultivate this power become anchors in a world that is adrift. They know who they are because they spent a lot of time discovering. They know what they want because they had the necessary silence to hear their own desires, not the echoes of others' expectations. So, if you're someone who loves staying at home, who feels that deep peace when you close the door and the outside world becomes distant, know this: you're not missing anything. You're gaining something that few have. Yourself, unfiltered, without masks, without performance. Just you growing at the pace that only silence allows. And when the world questions your choice, when they try to make you feel that something is wrong, remember, the strongest trees don't grow in constant storms. They grow in places where they can extend deep roots without being constantly uprooted. You are building roots, and when the next storm comes, you'll know who remains standing. And if you also love staying at home, if you value silence, culture, and deep knowledge as a tool for personal construction and want to continue on this path, subscribe to the Awakened One channel and activate notifications so you don't miss the next content. Until the next video.